Hey everybody, Thomas Joseph here. Now today I am super excited to share with you something that you have asked about, and that is lemon bars. We're going to share with you the tips and tricks in making perfect lemon bars so that you have that sweet and tangy combination, but you don't end up with that soggy crust or filling that goes underneath your crust. Let's get started here with the bottom layer of the lemon bars, and that is the crust. So here I have 3.5 cups of all-purpose flour. So to this I'm going to add a half a cup of confectioner sugar. Now I like to use confectioner sugar here because it really does kind of work its way into the dough much better. It's not going to be as granular, so it won't give you kind of a sandy crust, but it will give you a very crisp crust in the end. Another ingredient that I'm going to add is a half a cup of wheat germ, and this is kind of interesting. It gives a little bit of a texture to the crust, which I think is really good here with lemon bars. To this I'm going to add a half a teaspoon of coarse salt. So now I'm going to sift together my dry ingredients using a simple wire whisk here. This will help to break up any of the clumps from the confectioner sugar. And so once this is fully incorporated, it's now time to add our last ingredient, and that is butter. So I have 4 sticks, which is an entire pound of unsalted butter that I've cut up into small cubes, and this is really well chilled. You want to make sure this is cold because we're going to cut it into the flour here. This is a pretty simple crust here, you guys. It's only 5 ingredients. And it's really an all-purpose crust because you can use this for so many other things. You can use this as a tart dough, you could use it as a cookie dough, and you could flavor it in different ways as well. If you wanted to add cinnamon or spice or something like that, it would be really great here as well. I'm just using my fingers to cut this butter into the flour. It's going to take a few minutes. You could certainly do this in a food processor that would make really fast work of this job. Or you could use one of these guys. This is a pastry cutter. This will really help in breaking up the butter into small pieces and incorporating it into the flour. So I'm going to do it by hand the old-fashioned way, and this should only take a few minutes. So this looks like it's nice and combined here. You want to make sure that this dough holds together when you press it. So if it holds together in a clump, that's going to be perfect because it's going to press nicely into the bottom of our pan. I'm using a regular rimmed baking sheet here. This is 12.5 inches by 17.5 inches. And I have it lined with parchment paper. So butter the bottom of the pan, line it with a piece of parchment paper, butter it again, and line in the opposite direction. And this is going to really help to pull the lemon bars out of the pan at the end when they're done cooking and chilling. So crust goes right in, and this is going to make a lot of lemon bars, you guys. So this is a great recipe if you're going to host a party, if you're planning on bringing dessert somewhere. This is a really great recipe because it can feed a crowd. One of my favorite tricks is bringing the crust up the side of the pan, and I like to do this because what it does is it creates an edge, and in the end when you blind bake this crust, you're going to have a nice edge to your crust, and when you pour the filling in, you don't run the risk of the filling going into the corners and going underneath your crust. So this looks good here. Now it's going right into a 350-degree oven for about 20 to 30 minutes until it's a nice golden brown color and the crust in the center here is set. Not wet at all, but set and dry. The crust is out of the oven, it's cooled completely. You can see it has a nice golden brown color. The edges have stayed nicely in the side of the pan. Now, if your crust bubbles up a little bit during baking, feel free to pull it out of the oven and push it down with a measuring cup to retain its shape. You're not really going to toughen the dough up too much because there is so much fat in this crust dough, so don't worry about it being overworked. But now, since we have our crust ready to go, I'm going to start on the filling. So I have 4 cups of granulated sugar here, and you might be thinking, wow, that's a lot of sugar, but it really needs to offset the sourness of the lemon juice. Now to this sugar, I'm going to add 2/3 of a cup of all-purpose flour, and the all-purpose flour here is going to help in thickening the filling. I'm going to add a half a teaspoon of salt, guys, and I'm going to add the zest of 1 large lemon, and we're really looking for 2 tablespoons of lemon zest here. So if you have small lemons, you might need to use the zest of a second lemon. And by the way, guys, you know, I'm making lemon bars today, but you could certainly take this basic formula and you could adjust it slightly using other citrus juices and zest. So I'm going to knock this zest off right into my dry ingredients here. And I'm going to sift this together with a wire whisk. Now, the reason you want to mix your sugar and your flour and the salts together is because flour has big clumps in it, and if you just added the flour to your eggs and your liquid ingredients, you would run the risk of having big clumps of flour in your filling. So the sugar really helps to break the clumps up. You can see there are hardly any in here. This will give you a nice filling that's not lumpy or clumpy at all. Now this is good to go. I'm going to put this off to the side for 1 second while I juice the last bit of my lemon here. Now, the reason you don't want to add your sugar while you're waiting to do the rest of your ingredients is because sugar and eggs together will start to react. All of that sugar will react with the eggs, and it's called sugar burn. So you don't really want to add it too soon before you're ready to throw this in the oven. So here I go with my lemon. I'm looking for about 1.5 cups of lemon juice. So that looks perfect. And now I'm ready to mix all of my ingredients together. So I have 8 large eggs here in this bowl. And now I'm going to add the sugar, flour, lemon zest mixture right in, and my 1.5 cups of lemon juice here. And just whisk this together until it's fully combined. The egg yolks lend a richness and creaminess to the filling, while the whites give structure. Once this is nicely combined, I'm going to pour it right into my pan. And then this goes right into your oven, the middle rack of your oven, 350 degrees, same temperature as before, for about 30 minutes. And you can see, guys, the nice wall that we built, that edge, is really helping to keep the filling in the center. None of this loose filling is going over the edge, under the crust. It's not going to burn. It's not going to stick when it's fully baked and ready to go. So into the oven, be careful, don't splash this around. So our lemon bars, they're out of the oven. Now, once they come out of the oven, you want to let them cool to room temperature before you place it in the refrigerator to chill for a few hours up to overnight. The beauty of this parchment paper is that you should be able to pop your lemon bars out. And this way, you don't have to fight with the pan to cut really nice slices. Now, I'm going to remove the parchment paper from underneath, and I'm just taking one of these thin offset spatulas, running it in between the parchment and the bottom crust of the lemon bars here. And I should be able to shimmy the parchment out from underneath the bars right onto a large cutting board, you guys. Give yourself enough work surface so that you have room to cut. All right, so these look great. And now for cutting, I like to use a long, thin knife to cut lemon bars or brownies or blondies or anything like that. I have an exceptionally long knife here. You might not have this, but try to find your longest knife to do this. So once your knife is warm enough, dry off the blade. You don't want to have any excess moisture on your blade. And I'm going to eyeball it here, but you could certainly use a ruler to help you. And I'm going to cut right in the center, wiping the blade of your knife every time you go to cut it so that you get really clean slices, clean edges. You can really portion out bars easily when you just divide them by eye. Okay, so that's 4, and now I'm gonna just turn the cutting board and I'm gonna cut this now into sixths. So I'm going to start again in the center. Now, if you wanted these to be really professional looking, you could cut off the edge if you'd like, so they would all be uniform, all 48 pieces. Now, if you really wanted to be fancy, if you wanted to dress these lemon bars up, you could take some egg whites and whip it into a meringue and garnish the top with a beautiful meringue that you could torch. But a simple dusting of confectioner's sugar is really all you need. This step here, I would recommend that you do it right before serving, because the confectioner's sugar does have a tendency to melt into the filling as it sits, so don't do this too far in advance, but make sure you do it after you cut the lemon bars. If you do this before you cut the lemon bars, the top of your lemon bar squares are not going to be beautiful. So sprinkle a generous amount. I'm going to go right for one of these edge pieces here, but this looks amazing to me, you guys. You have a nice amount of filling, not too much. You have a crisp bottom crust. You have a nicely dusted top on your lemon bars, and you know what? I'm gonna give this one a try. Now, there you go, guys. Lemon Bars 101. If you have any baking conundrums, kitchen conundrums, let us know using the hashtag Kitchen Conundrums. We'd love to hear from you, and we love solving your problems. Enjoy, guys.